Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at patreon.com/inspired disorder.
What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.
Swipe up 161. This is the show where I collect some posts from Instagram and I share them and I talk about them. You know, current events, things that are going on around the world. Gives me a place where I could be very angry about things that I have little to no control over. But also sharing some just fun things that I found interesting. So let's get it started, shall we? In episode 161 of a show where I don't really know why I keep doing it. But let's get into it. With the first one, a bit of movie trivia. The Blair Witch Project. The filmmakers of the Blair Witch Project saved money by returning the video camera to Circuit City after filming. It went on to set a Guinness World Book record for the highest box office to budget ratio, with it earning roughly $248 million on a budget of only $60,000, minus the cost of the camera from Circuit City, which contributed, I'm sure, to the failing of Circuit City, which wasn't a very good business model. That was like a very annoying place to go buy electronics, the way they had things set up there. But anyway, interesting. I worked at the movie theater, when this movie came out, and it was an interesting kind of cultural event on some levels because it was found footage, which became a huge aspect of the horror genre. Paranormal Activity, probably the most well-known for being found footage. Not the greatest of franchises, but, you know, it's an interesting premise to have found footage. Cloverfield was probably one of the best uses of it, I would say. It's just an interesting way to put the audience directly into the action. So this one not only had found footage, the premise was that it was, you know, a true story, that this was actual found footage from these people that were out doing a thing on the Blair Witch, and they just disappeared. And we found their footage and put this together to show what happened. So it's, you know, trying to act like all of the found footage movies that came after this, trying to act like just normal people would, and under the guise of, hey, we're going to film everything. So I guess Cannibal Holocaust was probably the original found footage movie. That's what I would say. Also a horror movie. Perfect movie for Thanksgiving. Give it a watch. Cannibal Holocaust. But yeah, Blair Witch Project, which is crazy. So yeah, not only that, so there was this whole thing where, like, you know, obviously people didn't believe this story. They understood that it was just a brilliant marketing strategy. But I remember lobbies full of people just discussing this thing as if it was a true tragic event that took place. But I also liked the movie. It did cause a lot of people to vomit. It was also the beginning of shaky cam, which there was a movie about the cigarette company with where they sue the cigarette company. I forget what that movie was called, but that one's got a lot of shaky cam in it as well. Had Russell Crowe and that dude. I'm blanking on his name. Nope, not Martin Scorsese. He's worked with him though. Al Pacino. Al Pacino's shaky cam. People puked regularly in that contender. I don't remember. And the Blair Witch Project. A lot of vomit powder, which the smell would make people want to vomit as well. But yeah, made a ton of money, which is fun because, I mean, with movies, they don't have to cost a lot. They don't have to. Technology, like, people can make movies just with their phone. They could do the majority of movie making on their phone. So, like, if you're creative enough and you can find a story that works or that you could tell using kind of that minimal, but that's like way more than they had in the 80s, and people made movies back then. It's like you don't really need that much to make a movie these days. So, but it is cool. I mean, there's a lot of independent movies out there, I'm sure. You know, it's weird how the budgets are really high. But, I mean, I don't understand how, like, everything that would cost money in the making of a film. But anyway, it's great that from 60,000 to 248 million. I wonder what that feels like for the actors. They probably didn't get paid much. I wonder if they got a percentage. That would have been amazing if they got a percentage of 248 million for sure. But chances are, I doubt it. That's not usually how stories go. Not in capitalism. Stories don't turn out where it's like, oh, everybody made money? Nah, not really. Oh, it's successful for everybody? Nope, not really. Maybe, though. Maybe it's one of those stories. I'm not going to hold my breath. I'm also not going to do the research at the moment. But let's move on to another company that's not doing so good, catching a lot of heat. They went down for some unexplained reason after a whistleblower just happened to come out saying that they were doing a bunch of crazy stuff. And maybe, you know, somebody had to reset the, shred some digital documents, as it were. Maybe. But Facebook isn't doing very good. And they think rebranding is going to be the thing that changes it. I mean, all horrible businesses go through a rebranding phase. I mean, oil companies do it almost every other week. You know, their drugs, the pharmaceutical company rebrands drugs constantly to maintain patents on things. So yeah, it's Facebook's going to rebrand. I don't know what that would change. Like, everybody knows that it's still Facebook. You know, like, it's not like people are going to be confused that once they start calling it something different, unless they do like some huge overhaul on the design. But then you're just going to have a bunch of people angry at the change of design. I've never liked Facebook. Like, it's out of all of the, social media platforms over the last 2 decades, it's like it was the big thing that kind of destroyed MySpace. I enjoyed MySpace. I enjoyed Twitter. Instagram's all right, even though they keep making changes that make it almost impossible to use. Specifically, I can't upload my episodes to Instagram right now because they made some changes. So, youtube.com/inspired disorder. But yeah, rebranding, I don't know what that would do for them. But, it'd be interesting to see what it is, I guess. I can't imagine it being too creative. They don't seem to be like the leaders of creativity in any way. But yeah, I really need to just delete. I wish I could get rid of Instagram. Instagram kind of it fits for the content that I make. And then it's like, well, what am I make content for if I don't have an Instagram? I put stuff up on Twitter, but Twitter is also just where I like to talk a lot of shit. I use different ones, but for sure I should just get rid of Facebook. I don't use it. I don't like it. I don't know. It's just like, I don't know. You want to get at me somewhere else. A little over 4 years ago, I started The Many Faces. It's an ongoing series of abstract ink portraits. Each piece is improvised. Each piece is released daily. Start collecting now. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com/TMF. That stands for The Many Faces. And save yourself 25% when you use coupon code RTS. That stands for The Ray Taylor Show, because that's what you're listening to, and I love you. So I want you to save 25% when you use that coupon code. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com/TMF and use coupon code RTS to save 25% when you start collecting one of over 1,600 original ink paintings. By myself, I made them. Support me. I love you. Back to the show. So let's move on to somebody that died recently, Colin Powell. War criminal, some may say. I would probably agree with. Here are some of his greatest hits. Not to disrespect the dead, but when you're responsible for this much death in the world, contributing to on whatever levels he contributed to, I think some criticism is it's necessary to understand who this person was. This is a person who lied about weapons of mass destruction to get us into invade a country that was not responsible for 9/11. That's what they said. And then they're like, oh, but they have weapons of mass destruction. And then no weapon, no WMDs. 306,000 dead Iraqis. You got somebody encouraged and defended the 1968, the quote-unquote My Lai massacre as an advisor in Vietnam. At least 347 Vietnamese dead. Orchestrated the 1989 U.S. invasion of Panama. Pulverized neighborhoods. Worked very hard and fought very hard to get adequate support to the Contras, who were resisting the communist government of the Ortegas in Nicaragua. I have no regrets about my role. He led the 1991 Gulf War against Iraq. That was the first time, Chapter 1, with the daddy of the 9/11 president, George Herbert Bush. I don't remember. Two George Bushes, both president. This is ridiculous. What country are we living in? But the first Gulf War, at least 100,000 dead Iraqis. So, blood on hands. Not necessarily somebody that should be praised necessarily. I mean, you could mourn his loss. He could have meant something to people on a personal level, and I'm sure he did. But for the masses to be like praising this guy, sometimes you just gotta like rest in peace and be on with it, and not really make an effort to say he's an amazing person when he's responsible for so much death. And it's sad that he was in the business of death. It's sad that our country invests exponentially more money in the military and the defense budget, which 9/11 show does nothing to actually defend this country. But it's a way to invade other countries and a way to justify murder. And it's disgusting. So, rest in peace, Colin Powell. And last but not least, let's go on to some more, at least on the fictional side. A bunch of murder again, but at least it's fictional and not like an invading a country for resources. This is just invading your senses with an amazing story, which is Squid Game. Squid Game director could turn to YouTube for season 2 ideas. Obviously, Squid Game, which I am currently reviewing episode by episode every Tuesday. I recently recorded episode 1, Red Light, Green Light. But it's an amazing show that I highly recommend everybody check out. And there were no plans for season 2 necessarily. The writer-director had only done Dong Hyuk. Yeah, Dong Hyuk is had only done written one season and took a lot out of him. He wrote and directed all 9 episodes. Amazing show, amazing story, very creative and inventive. But a lot of it based around games. I mean, it's an interesting narrative wrapped around like these like childhood games. one of which is like Pogs was an introductory game from the show. And then there's, Red Light, Green Light, like I said. Tug of War is one of the games. So he might be doing some research to come up with other games. Because in the world of Squid Game, this corporation, these people that have putting together the Squid Games have been doing so for years. It seems by the records that in that one episode. So it could even be a prequel, but I'm sure there's more than just 6 games. But yeah, I'm super hopeful. I know I've heard people suggest that he get writers together, like put together a writer's room, which that might be fun, but I wonder if that would remove some of the just character moments, would remove some of the just the small bits that make the first season so good. All of the I don't know. Maybe it would, whatever. I would like for him to do more of this show for sure. So it'll be interesting to see what games are in the second one, if there are games. I mean, you could take this story in a lot of different directions, especially since Gi-hun, at the spoilers, goes back into the game. So I don't know if it's following him. It could be from the perspective of the lead man, the head lead man. Forget what that guy's called. Or maybe there's different locations across. Who knows? It's a very it's the potential is great with that show, and I love it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, how long. Hopefully, it doesn't take too long. But I'm sure, he's had this show for 10 years. He had been trying to sell this show, and finally Netflix decided to buy it, and it's the most popular thing ever. So it's like, how are you going to compress 10 years of work into, let's say he writes season 2 in a year? You're compressing 10 years of fine-tuning a story so I guess you would have to have like a writer's room to kind of compensate for, you would have to. Or maybe this guy's just like amazing. He's like just tuned in to his work so well that it's easy for him. Who knows? Either way, I'm excited, and I don't care where he gets his ideas from. I just want to see another season of Squid Game, because it feels like it's set up for another season. Which, watching the show, is like, how could they do another season? And they're like, oh, that's how you can do another season. That's cool. I definitely want to see that. Like Hurt Locker kind of a ending. Let's do some shout-outs and get out of here, shall we? Wasn't too negative. I kind of talked shit about a dead guy. What are you going to do? He's responsible for a lot worse atrocities than me talking ill of the dead. But, I don't think people should be praising him as much unless, anyway. Shout-outs. Shout out to Movie Facts. Shout out Vice News. Shout out Redfish Stream. And shout out ABC News. But most importantly, shout out to you. New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on IGTV, YouTube, and everywhere else podcasts are found. Binge the full week ad-free over at patreon.com/Inspired Disorder. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. Follow the show on Instagram at Ray Taylor Show. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!